Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, How to Build Relationships on LinkedIn with Bill McCormick. Today, you are listening using your computer speaker system by default. You'll have the opportunity to submit questions by typing them into the questions pane on the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time. We will collect these and address them at the end of the presentation. To give a brief introduction on today's presenter, Bill McCormick discovered the power of LinkedIn and social selling when he and his wife started their advertising specialty company over 6 years ago in the US. With only a handful of clients, he quickly became a student of social selling, discovering how to find leads and generate sales with LinkedIn as a major part of his sales process. Since then, Bill has joined one of the world's top LinkedIn trainers, Bryony Tillman, and her company, Social Sales Linked, where he specialized in helping sales teams launch social selling programs in order to maximize their LinkedIn more efforts. Bill's passion is to take what he has learned and pass that on to those in sales, especially in our industry, helping them leverage LinkedIn to build stronger relationships, taking connections for the digital space to face-to-face. I will now hand this over to Bill.
Great, wonderful. Thank you so much, Ida, and hello, Australia. It's great to be with you. It's 9 o'clock past you, so in the past, so you're in the future. So I was just telling my wife I'm actually talking to the future. I've never done that before, so this is pretty exciting for me. And so I'm here to talk to you about how to build relations on LinkedIn. And this webinar was started when COVID began, and the actual title was How to Build Relationships on LinkedIn During Quarantine, because so many people were in quarantine, and no way did I ever think that when we got to July, we would still be in quarantine. But Ida had told you a little bit about me. I do come from the industry. My wife and I started a promotional products business it'll be 7 years ago. I believe next week is our anniversary. My wife's been in the industry since 2000. I joined because I had some sales experience, so I quickly became the salesperson. And so I was doing that part-time, but discovered that LinkedIn was really the place where I could go to find the clients that I needed to get in front of, because we had to build our business rather quickly. What happened with that was, as I began to be successful, I was part of many networking groups, and people would always ask me what the key to my success was, and I would always say LinkedIn. And so that led me to find some LinkedIn trainers such as Bryn Tillman and connect with them and begin to network with them. And so anytime I would get near anyone, I would tell them about LinkedIn, which led to a friend of mine saying, hey, you should teach and train people how to do this. So then I went down the course of training through videos. That didn't quite work out, but 30% of our promotional products business is actually in Bermuda. And one of my clients down there knew that I was doing LinkedIn training. It was a bank, and they were like, listen, we want LinkedIn training for our employees. Can you do that? And as any salesperson that doesn't know how to do something, my answer was, sure, I can do that, thinking I'll just figure it out. I went back to my network of LinkedIn trainers that I was part of a chat group with on LinkedIn, and Bryn Tillman was the one who reached back out to me when I asked the question, and her and I began working together. And so now I get to work with her every day at Social Sales Link, where we help people leverage LinkedIn to build their businesses. And so today, what we're going to be talking to you about is how you can build relationships on LinkedIn. Whether we're talking about doing it during COVID, and whether you're one of the ones in Australia who are going back into quarantine, or maybe you've had restrictions lifted in your area and you're getting actually back out where you can actually sit with someone across the table and have a meeting. Do you remember when we used to be able to do that? But that's where we're going to really focus our attention on. And this is our agenda right here. Is we're first going to talk about an outreach philosophy, because we have to have a philosophy for how we want to reach out to people, because what worked back in January and February won't necessarily work now. We're also going to talk about our first degree connections and how we can find them. Oftentimes, we're connected to people that we don't even realize we're connected to. And if you're like me, you do something called connect and forget. You connect with someone, but then you completely forget about them. So there's probably some gold in your connections that you haven't even taken a look at yet, and you haven't even really used it to the extent that it can be used. So we're going to talk about finding them and identifying them. And then we're going to talk about how to engage with them, how we can, some simple actions that we can take so that we can begin to engage with them, all with the idea of having a conversation with them. And then the last thing we'll talk about is thought leadership, which is basically just sharing content. So I'm going to now turn my camera off so you don't have to look at my face, and you can focus right on the screen and you can take notes. This is being recorded, so you will be able to go back and watch it. So there's my camera is off, and now I can really focus on what it is we want to talk about. So the first thing we have to talk about is the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is the fact that we're going through this global pandemic right now. Whether you've come out of quarantine or you're going back into quarantine, we have to realize that things are different now than they were back in January and February. And one of the things about the promotional products industry is I think that we understand this better than anyone. I saw one figure where for Imprint, their sales, I believe in April, were down 80%. So that's just a huge number. And I'm sure many of you are also seeing some dips in your sales. While I no longer work in our promotional products business, my wife handles that. She's seen a real dip in our numbers, and she's actually enjoying it because it's been 6 years or 7 years now that we've been in business, and she's not had a break. And so she gets to take this at the break. But the elephant in the room we have to realize is that things are different. And oftentimes when we're reaching out to people, whether it's on the phone or via email or on LinkedIn or on Facebook or some other social media platform, their world looks different than it looked back in January, February, and March. They are, working from home. If schools are closed, then they have to dealing with working from home and also taking care of their kids. Here in New York, where I am, they're debating about whether they're going to open school in the fall in September. And so we have to realize that looks a little different. They may have a sick family member at home. They may have a family member who's in the hospital and is suffering from COVID. All of these things play into our outreach philosophy because, as I said, and I'll keep saying it through the webinar, things are different now than they were before. So when we're talking about using LinkedIn during the COVID-19 crisis, my boss, my training partner, Bryn Tillman, she says, now is a time for us to build relationships, show real empathy, and be a resource. And the sales will come when the time is right. If you've ever heard in sales about the law of reciprocity, I leverage that really heavily to build our promotional products business. We do a lot of self promos, and I would give them out regularly to prospects. I would send packages of them with the whole idea of this reciprocity, that because I'm giving you something, then you feel obligated to reciprocate and give me a meeting. Well, we don't want to talk about that now during this crisis. What we want to do is pay it forward. We want to do things for people without any thought of being paid back, so that we can establish some rapport with them, establish some trust with them, and knowing that the sales will come when the time is right. So we teach social selling as Social Sales Link. Social selling is the process of leveraging online tools and platforms such as LinkedIn to attract, teach, and engage your targeted buyers in order to have more sales conversations. The last part is really the key. We teach using LinkedIn in order to have more sales conversations. But when we're talking about it in terms of this crisis and the pandemic, really the goal of LinkedIn for social selling in a crisis is just to have more conversations. We'll worry about the sales later, but right now we just want to begin to establish and initiate some conversations with people who maybe we've talked to before or maybe we haven't talked to before. So the first thing we need to do is find your existing connections. Who is it that you're already connected with? Okay, so they're your first degree connections. I'll give you a quick tutorial on connections with LinkedIn because I don't know how many of you are are familiar with how it works. When you look at someone's LinkedIn profile, you'll see a 1 next to their name, or a 2nd next to their name, or a 3rd next to their name. If it says first, it means they're your first degree connection. And that means either you sent them an invitation to be a part of your network, or they sent you one to be a part of their network. Either way, there's already a connection that's established. 2nd degree connections are the people that are connected to your 1st degree connections. And then 3rd degree connections are everyone else. All right, so what we want to do is we're talking about going through and looking at your 1st degree connections and finding ones that are clients. All right, I tell all of my clients all the time, you should connect with your clients because they're great. They can be a great source for referrals. They can also be a great source for going deeper in an organization, making introductions to you. For example, we deal heavily in our promotional products business with people in marketing, but we often will ask for introductions to whoever's in human resources, or whoever's in charge of the safety team if it's a manufacturing facility. So you want to make sure and find your existing connections that are your clients. Then of course find ones that are your prospects. Who is your ideal client? And I know in this atmosphere, in this climate right now, it's like anybody's my client. Anybody that will give me an order, anyone that wants 100 face masks or shields, or wants the little key thingies that you can open the doors with without touching the doors. I don't know if they've made their way down to Australia yet, but they're big up here. Anyone's my client. Well, that's really not true. Your clients, what you should be doing is looking at your clients from last year and look at who are your top 5, 10, 15 clients. Who are the clients that you look at that client and say, I want 5 more of that one. I'm thinking of a client we have right now in Bermuda who always orders early, who always prepays, and who's always open to suggestions and never shops around. That's the kind of client I want. So if they're not your client yet, they're your prospect. So who in your existing connections would fit that model? Who is the marketing people that if you deal mainly with marketing people? Maybe you deal mainly with people in human resources. Who in your existing connections that aren't already a client are in human resources that can be a prospect? And then next, who are your referral partners? Who's regularly referring business to you? Maybe it's a printer if you only do promotional products. If you do both, then maybe it's a graphic designer, or maybe it's an event planner. Who are those people? Who are your vendors? So this has been a sticking point here in the United States as I've been doing this webinar, because some people and some distributors say, well, I don't want to connect with my vendors because they're connected with other promotional products distributors, and I don't want them to see me and see my connections. And what I tell everyone is if you're that worried about your competition, then, and you're worried about them stealing a client away just because they can find you on LinkedIn and find your clients on LinkedIn, there's probably bigger problems with customer service and with the kind of clients you're choosing than just that. But you should be connected to your vendors. It's a great way for you to tell them they've done a good job and to get great customer service. You should look in your existing connections of who you're connected with in terms of your vendors. And then your coworkers. If you're in a company that's larger and has several sales reps and other support staff, you should be connected with them on LinkedIn. If you're a solopreneur and you're alone, then how do you do with other competition? In the LinkedIn training world, there's not a lot of competition. We all work very well together and we support one another. I know in promotional products it can be a little different, but you may want to consider being connected with other promotional product distributors. And then community leaders. So why should you be connected with them? It's a great place of support. And especially if chambers of commerce, if you're connected with them, they can be a great place for you to go to serve, to share your thought leadership, which we'll talk about at the end, but really share your knowledge base to try to help other people. So in order to find your existing connections, you have to know where to look. And what we're going to do is I'm going to show you right now live on LinkedIn how you can export your connections. But first, what I want you to do is take a screenshot or write down this web address, which is bit.ly/ all lowercase APPA LinkedIn resources. I was going to put it in a chat, but I noticed the chat's disabled on this webinar, so I can't do that. But there'll be a link for you to get this information later. In that link, there's going to be a video of me showing you how to do this, because this is the biggest question we get is, can you tell us how to export our connections again? So what I'm going to do right now is go live on LinkedIn. So hopefully you're seeing my LinkedIn screen here, and this is the home page of LinkedIn. And so to export your connections, what you're going to do is you're going to go over here to the Me icon and click on that. There'll be a drop-down menu. You go over here to Settings and Privacy and click that, which will open another window up. And then you're going to go down in the privacy section. You're going to go down to how LinkedIn uses your data. And then the second one down is get a copy of your data. You're going to click on that. And then you're going to come down here and see, I've just done this recently today because I did the video for you. So you're going to click Connections, and then you're going to click Submit. When you do that, you're going to have to put the password in for your LinkedIn account. And then it will say that they're compiling your archive and it will be ready for you and you'll receive an email. It takes about 15 minutes to get the email. And when that email comes through, there'll be a clickable link within the email that when you click on it, will bring you back to this page and it will say Download Archive. When you click Download Archive, it's going to download it as a zip file that you then can open, and this is what the final product is going to look like. It's going to be an Excel spreadsheet with the first name and last name, email address if they've okayed that. LinkedIn has disabled this because too many people were spamming other people, and GDPR in Europe made this obsolete. So if they've allowed that, the company they list on their LinkedIn profile and the position they link on their LinkedIn profile, and most importantly, when you connected with them. And it's going to go from your most recent connection to your oldest connection. And why this is so important is because now you have a place where you can go through and say, oh, this is a client, this is a prospect, this is a networking partner. And also, I'm going to show you some actions you can take on LinkedIn to build relationships with people. And this is a great place where you can plan out your activity. We're going to talk about giving someone kudos, endorsing someone, recommending someone, engaging with someone's content. You can then go through and say, oh, wow, yeah, Rose, yeah, you know what, I want to endorse her, so I'm going to put an X next to there. And Tracy Swan, yep, you know what, I'm going to engage with some of her content. And what you can do is by doing this on a regular basis, you can be more intentional with your activity on LinkedIn. Because one of the things we find that happens most with people on LinkedIn is that they practice random acts of social. Random acts of social, they're not consistent with their LinkedIn use. Or they do something, as a new term I heard today by an Instagram trainer, they post and ghost. They post something and then you just go away from LinkedIn and you never come back to it and look at it. So by doing this, by exporting your connections, this is a great way for you to manage them and to also take some consistent action in what we're going to be talking about today. So let's go back to the slideshow. And so again, there'll be a video on that at this link right down here, which will be sent to you later, and you can go back and do that so you can do it in the right way. So we're going to talk about some actions now that you can take on LinkedIn. And the first is to give kudos. This is something that's relatively new, and so a lot of people don't really know about it. So we'll go back to LinkedIn really quick, and you can give someone kudos from two different places. First of all, you can go here to start just get rid of that there. You can go here to start a post, and you see where it says celebrate an occasion. So you click celebrate an occasion. And so if somebody joins your team, you can welcome them. This is give kudos, which is right here. If you've launched a new project, you can talk about that. You can celebrate a work anniversary or celebrate someone's new position. So they've really extended this even since March when we started teaching it. Right now, we're just going to talk about giving kudos. So we're going to give kudos. So I'm going to search for someone. And so I'm going to give kudos to Ida. And so it says, so I type who I want to recognize and then pick next. Now there's 10 different templates. I can say thank you. I can say going above and beyond. I can recognize her as an inspirational leader, team player. I can say great job, making work fun, amazing mentor, outside the box thinker, great presentation, or making an impact. I'm going to choose the thank you. So when I click done, I'm actually going to bring the post up with some pre-populated wording that I can either leave in there or take out. So it says, I just wanted to say thank you for having me on the webinar today. This is why I don't like typing live. I had a blast. And now I'm going to post this. Now, what happens is Ida's going to get a notification saying that that I gave her some kudos, right? So remember, we're talking about building relationships with people. We're talking about having conversations and driving conversations. So this is a great way. So if you do this with someone maybe that you forgot to say thank you to, it's going to drive and help to drive conversations. So I told you that I could do it there right from starting a post at the top. You could also do it from someone's profile. So Robert Williams, he heard this webinar that I did through PPAI because I did it back in April, and he listened to it, and he's the one that put me in touch with Ida so that we could do this for you all. So if I go to his profile, if you go over here to the more button and click on that, you can go here and give kudos, and then I could give kudos and say thank you to Robert. I'm not going to do that now because of time constraints. So that's give kudos. The next one that we want to talk about, and I'm going to do two on this one so we can kind of stay on the slideshow a little bit and then stay on LinkedIn a little bit. So the first is endorsing someone. So this is endorsing someone for skills. And then the next one is LinkedIn recommendation. So a lot of people are like, well, what's the difference? So when you're endorsing someone, you're endorsing them for a skill on their profile. And it's a nice, quick way to recognize someone. And again, what's great is they will get a notification. So again, it's an opportunity for you to have a conversation and to build a relationship. In fact, when you endorse someone, they'll actually get a notification saying that you've done that, and then prompting them to thank you for it. So as you can see, that's how that two-way conversation happens. That's a very quick thing that you can do for someone. Anyone can endorse anyone. You can't do anything about anyone endorsing you except removing skills from your profile, which I don't recommend you doing. Recommendations are like one step further. You think of recommendations as a written review. So this is when someone goes to your profile and writes a text post out on you, recommending you and recommending your service and saying how great you are at what you do. And what's great about this is there's three things you can do with a recommendation someone writes for you. You can post it on your profile. You can ask them to revise it, or you can actually delete it. If you've decided, you know, look, I don't want that on my profile, you can actually delete it. So let's take a look at how we do that. First, we'll take a look at skills. And so I'm gonna take you to my friend Bryn Tillman. So Bryn is my training partner. I would recommend you go in and follow her. You can do that from the more button. She's approaching her limit of 30,000 connections on LinkedIn, so she doesn't connect with a lot of people, but you can follow her. I believe this button right here on her profile is at follow, so you can follow her. So, but if I go down to her profile, and you can find skills right down underneath the experience section. So it's scroll down, it's about 2/3 of the way down, under education, under license and certification, under military experience, and here it is, skills and endorsements. So the top three show, and then you have to click show more in order to see more of them. And so now I can go through, and I know Bryn is really great at social media marketing, so I can click it. It's gonna bring up this box that asks me some questions. You can take a look at that on your own. You do not have to fill this out. And if you do fill it out, Bryn, if I filled this out, Bryn would not know that I filled it out. It's for LinkedIn's back-end use, but you can also just click it off. And now Bryn is gonna get a notification saying that Bill just endorsed you for social media marketing. Say thank you. So as you can see, that's a way that it draws conversation, and it leads to building relationships. So as you can see, this is a one and done. I usually don't put a lot of weight on endorsements because anyone can endorse me. In fact, I don't know about you, but I've gotten endorsements from people from the other side of the world. Well, you guys are the other side of the world, but other parts of the other side of the world, and people I don't even know, I've never worked with, and like, how do they know to endorse me? What they're doing is they're just hunting for for you to engage with them. And that's not what I'm talking about here. And I should probably take a moment and just talk about how right now it's so important that we're authentic in our outreach, whether it's just endorsing someone or giving kudos or writing a recommendation or messaging someone. We should not be selling, we should not be pitching, we should be reaching out in authenticity. So you should only be endorsing someone that you know deserves to be endorsed, and the same for recommendations. I don't know about you, but I'm getting so many messages on LinkedIn from people who are trying to sell me and pitch me without me even knowing who they are. And part of it is they just don't know any better because no one's taught them. If you find those people, send them to me. I can teach them. But also is they just don't know any better, and they haven't been taught any different way. So we need to be different. So as you see, endorsements are really quick. Recommendations, though, are the next step up. So recommendations are found right underneath your skills and endorsements. So they're right here. So you can go to someone's profile and you can write a recommendation right from here. So I can recommend brand. Or what you can do is you can do it from the drop down of their profile. So I'll show you. Some of you maybe might know Jo Saunders. So she's a great LinkedIn trainer in Australia. She's doing great work there. So if I wanted to write a recommendation for Jo, I could do it also from right here. Request a recommendation or recommend. Remember, we're not requesting anything now, we're giving. We're all in the process of giving. And so when we recommend someone, what happens is we have to select the relationship, okay? So I report to Bryn because she's the boss, she's the CEO, and it's her CEO at LinkedIn, LinkedIn author, LinkedIn sales trainer, sales navigator trainer. So I pick that position, and then I click next, and then I would go ahead and I'd write the recommendation out. And like I said, when I do this and I send it to Bryn, she's going to get a notification. She's going to get to look at it, see the great, fantastic things that I said about her, and she's either can ask me for a rewrite, like edit it. She can ask me to, or she can post it on her wall or on her profile, or she can just ignore it. Hopefully, she wouldn't do that because that would hurt my feelings quite a lot. So that's skills and recommendations. And remember, what we're talking about here is driving conversations and building relationships with people. So the next thing we're going to talk about is making introductions. So this one is, remember, we're talking about giving. And so this has to do with your networking partners. This has to do with, so for example, say you know a CPA, and in talking with a CPA, maybe you just reach out to him, hey, how you doing? Here in the States, CPAs are kind of busy now. They're not usually, because tax day got moved from April 15th to July 15th. So they're kind of crazy right now. But you say, hey, so what are good introductions? Who are you trying to meet? In other words, who are good referral partners for you? And he says, payroll people are really great for me. So what you can do is actually go on LinkedIn and find out who you know that they want to know. And the way you do that is up here in the search bar. So this is going to be different for all of us because we all have different networks. But so I'm gonna show you how to do this. You go in the search bar and click search, and then you click people. And then over here, you click all filters. And this is all in the free version of LinkedIn. So this is the free version of LinkedIn. There's like 14 free search fields. So remember, my friend, the accountant, wants to meet people in payroll. So I'm looking at my first degree connections, people I already know that he wants to meet. So I'm going to click first degree here. I may pick a location or a region, maybe. I'm not going to now just for time purposes. And then I can go down here and under title, I can put payroll. See, I've done this search a few times. And I click apply. And now I see I've got 3 people who work in payroll. I can then say to my accountant, Tom, hey, Tom, I want to introduce you to Delaney and Kelly and to Jessica. And I make that introduction. Remember, I'm not thinking about getting here. I'm just thinking about giving. And then when I'm reaching out to Delaney and say, hey, my friend Tom is a CPA and he's always looking to be connected with payroll people. Is it okay if I make an introduction? And she says yes. I can then say, hey, by the way, Delaney, who are you trying to meet? What you're doing here is you're being a connector and you're being a classic networker. And by doing this, again, we're talking about building relationships and doing something that's going to pay itself forward, because one of them is going to say, hey, by the way, George, who are you trying to meet? Oh, well, I want to meet marketing professionals. Oh, hey, I happen to know the VP of marketing at XYZ Corporation, and it just so happens to be the person you've been trying to get in front of maybe forever. That's how networking and connecting works. So that's making introductions. The next one that we're going to talk about is not the new slide that I just added because I hit the wrong button. I apologize. There we go. After making introductions, engaging content. Engaging on people's content, this is probably the biggest one that people will appreciate the most, because if there's one thing that I know from people using LinkedIn, they always struggle. I just don't know what to post. I'm not sure what I should write about. And we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But when people do finally post something, they kind of put it out there and they wait for somebody to engage on it. So if you engage with people's content, they'll ever be so grateful for you. And there's a couple of ways that you can do that. When you're looking at LinkedIn, you can just scroll through your feed and you can look. So there's the post I just did, the kudos I gave to Ida. But you can look through the post and look for content to engage with. So a lot of people don't understand that the content in the feed can be sorted by the most recent content or the top content. In other words, content that's getting the most engagement. I don't know if any of you know Jillian Bullock, but Jillian is also a fellow Australian. I know quite a few. There's quite a few in my LinkedIn training circles. But I always go to most recent because I want to see the content that's ripe and real. So you can just look through here and do this, or you can actually search content. A lot of people don't know this. You go up to search and look at right there is content. I click content, and then I go over to all filters again, and there's just a few filters here. And I want to look at content that's posted my first degree connections in the past 24 hours, and I apply. I do this every morning so that I'm constantly engaging in people's content. And so Joe posts a lot. In fact, you'll probably see Shay posts a lot. And so what I do is I look through here and look for content in which I want to engage with. All right, so Keon is from Bermuda. He's someone I know about, and so this is about Bermuda. So there's a few ways you can engage. First of all, you can react. We used to call it liking, but now they added all these. They've just added support, which is like LinkedIn's care, or Facebook's care, the heart and the hands. So there's like, celebrate, support, love, insightful, and then curious is kind of like, I wonder if that's real or not. So I'm gonna celebrate this, and then if I had time, I would read this article and I'd make sure I would comment, because that's what really drives engagement on LinkedIn. So if you engage with people's content, they are going to be ever so grateful, and you can bet that they're going to engage back on your content when it comes time for you to be posting. So that's engaging in content. Next, hold up open office hours. This kind of works really well in the coaching world. I'm not sure how it would really work in the promotional products world, other than if you were to pull together maybe some of your suppliers and also maybe like a graphic designer and maybe an embroidery person if you don't do apparel and wearables. Bring them all together and have an open office hours for your marketing people that are in the companies you deal with. Say, hey, I'm going to do a webinar. It's going to be a half an hour, and you bring all of your branding questions to us. And so maybe you have a brand specialist on, and they can ask questions about branding. They can ask questions about apparel and embroidery and screen printing and what is direct to garment and what is this dye sublimation stuff. So that is a way that it may work for promotional products. But we have this in here mainly because people in the coaching world, which we do a lot of consulting in, do really well with holding open office hours that are for free. This next one I love the most, and hopefully everything works out with this. And this is video messaging from the app. And so what I have to do is actually set up my phone onto the desktop, which you're seeing now. And sometimes this gives me a little bit of an issue, but it's so very important because we're seeing almost a 100% response in being able to do this. And so you just have to wait for this program that I use to make my phone go on here. But what you basically can do is going on the LinkedIn mobile app, you can actually send someone a message, a private message that is strictly a video. And so I'm going to wait for this program to come back up, and I'm just going to talk about thought leadership for a moment. For some reason, this program is giving me problems, and I say all the time, technology is great when it works, but when it doesn't work, we're very disappointed. And so I may have to. Okay, here we go. So hopefully this is going to work now. So we do this. Here we go. So now what you're going to do is you're going to see my screen of my phone. So what you do with this is you go to your LinkedIn mobile app right here and open that up. And then you go up here to the message tab, and then you type in somebody's name that you want to send a message to. So, and then you go over to here, rather than type the message out on your keyboard, you go over here to the plus sign and click on that, and then click video. Now you're going to see my messy desk, but I'm going to switch it around. You say, and then you record a video. You say, hey, Robert, thanks so much for putting me in touch with APPA and for me being able to do this webinar down in Australia while I'm sitting in New York. I had such a great time. I hope it was well worth everyone's time. Thanks so much. Have a great day. And now I send that. And so now I've sent that to Robert. He's going to get it. And I can tell you something. No one is doing this now. Okay? No one is sending video messages, especially from the promotional products world. And we're seeing about a 90 to 100% response rate on these. Again, we're talking about building relationships. So maybe you haven't gotten to go see that #1 client of yours. You've sent some emails, maybe you've even called them on the phone. Sending a video message will be so good. I can promise you that will set you apart, and they will be really, really appreciative of it. So video messaging from the app is key. Now, next, we're going to quickly talk about thought leadership, and this is creating content. And like I said before, everyone has a problem with this and struggles with this. So the idea here is you want to curate, create, and share thought leadership. So curate and create is doing it yourself. Sharing can be from other people and from other sources. And the idea here is we want to realize that, we always just say, people do business with people they know, like, and trust. Well, know, like, and trust will lead to, and this is actually backwards, and I'm sorry, attract, teach, and engage will lead to know, like, and trust. So I got that a little skewed, But the idea here is this should happen seamlessly. What we want to do is use LinkedIn to attract, teach, and engage them so that they can get to know, like, and trust us. All right. And it should happen seamlessly and it should happen organically, because as people see your content and your engagement and how you interact with them and with others, that will attract them. And by doing that, they will get to know you. And as you teach them through your thought leadership, they will then like you and like the value that you provide. And as you engage with them, the trust is developed. And that's how we talk about going from attract, teach, engage to know, like, and trust. And while this happens organically, it's not linear. All right. It kind of happens in a jumbled mess. Think ball of yarn and not long string of rope that's stretched out. All right. Content can be a little tricky. The algorithm can be tricky, and we certainly do not have time to get into that now, but I do have some trainings that can help with that. But when we're talking about thought leadership, we're talking about content. And what you want to do is you want to think of it as a gift, something you're giving someone. So you don't want to give them garbage. You know, you don't want to give them rubbish. You don't want to give them something that they're going to look at and say, what is this? Why did I get this? Because what we want to do is we want to earn the right to have a conversation. And I would even say that we want them to be asking us for a conversation. And in doing that, we have to think of the ask-offer ratio. So this comes from the sales trainer Keenan. It's just one word. That he's one of these one-word name guys. And he wrote a book called Gap Selling. And in there, he talked about the ask-offer ratio. So anytime we're engaging with a prospect or with a client, we're asking them for something. If we're creating content, we're asking them to take the time to read it. We have to make sure that the value that they get from what we're giving them is higher than the time we're asking them to spend. Okay, so in other words, if we're asking them to read a blog post, we want them to come away saying, wow, I never knew that before. Wow, I can't believe that was great. That I want more. I want more. You don't want them to read like 2 paragraphs of it and say, I don't know what they're talking about, and move on. All right, that doesn't meet up the ask-offer ratio. We always want to provide more value. And so when you're thinking about thought leadership, you want to be a resource. And think about these questions. What do your clients need now? What are their challenges where they are right now? What has changed in their business? How are they personally impacted? What does their team look like now? And what new solutions do they need? And think about that in terms of promotional products and branding and marketing. And then think, what insights and value can you bring to them in their current state? And that's kind of where you start thinking about thought leadership. And this can be a whole webinar all in and of itself. But again, we're talking about ways to engage with people to build relationships. And you have to realize that your profile is thought leadership too. All right. And just really quick, because we are coming down to the Q&A time that I want to get to. But quickly, I just want to talk about profile really quick, because many people have their profile set up as a resume, and it's all about them and their deliverable. And I even read an article in Forbes by a LinkedIn trainer which said you should be pitching in your profile. You shouldn't be doing that. Your profile should be thought leadership. It should be value centric. Okay. Your banner image here should be a billboard that talks about your company and your deliverable. So we have a big webinar tomorrow that my sales training partner and I are doing on converting content and connections conversations. So we're advertising that on our LinkedIn profile, on our banner. We are in the promotional products business. You're in the branding business. You should be using this space as a billboard, having good professional headshot, and having a headline, this area right here underneath your name, that tells who you help, how you help them, and what value you can bring them, what value you can help them to bring. All right. So for me, you can see, who do I help? Is I help you. And how do I help you? I help you turn your LinkedIn content and connections to conversations. And then we've added some stuff for virtual instructor-led training. I'll show you real quick, because she's upstairs and she doesn't know that I'm going to do this. Actually, she does, because I do this every single time to her. But I'll just show you someone in the promotional products world. So this is my wife's profile. And so providing marketing professionals with unique and innovative promotional products. Okay, so who do we help? We help marketing professionals. That's our number one client, especially on LinkedIn. That's who we're going after. So how do we help them with unique and innovative promotional products? So you have to think of your profile as thought leadership too. And this is the area that we call this above the fold, because when somebody lands on your profile, this is the first thing they see. So you want to brand it correctly and you want to provide value through it. We say you want to transform it from a resume to a resource. So I know this is kind of like drinking from a fire hose, and we've talked about a lot, but just in recapping in these last few moments, think about how you're going to be reaching out. You want to reach out with value. You want to reach out to people with empathy, and you want to be authentic in your outreach. All right. So think about that as you're thinking about how you're going to reach out to different people. Look through your first degree connections, export your connections as I showed you. And I'm going to put the link up for that video and where you can get some other resources in just a moment. But look through them, export them so that you can find them. And then number 3, engage with them. So target them, figure out who you want to engage with, and then go and, Nike it, just go do it. And I would say, set some time each day. It doesn't have to be long. It can be 15 minutes. You can set a timer on your phone to say 15 minutes, I'm going to go engage. I'm going to do 5 kudos today, or I'm going to endorse 6 people. All right. So do that. And then start thinking about thought leadership, start thinking about posting. And I'll just throw in, connect with me on LinkedIn. You saw my profile. If you look up Bill McCormick, space Massey, M-A-S-I, because I've got my Master of Advertising Specialty information from ASI. So if you look me, you can find me, and please send me a note that says you were on the webinar. All right. So we're gonna talk about questions now, which should have been put in the Q&A. But here are the resources. If you go to this Bitly app, and it is case sensitive, so make sure you're all lowercase. Not only will you find a link to a video on how to export your connections, you'll also find some resources that I give out to everyone who joins my network. So let me go ahead and turn my camera on. And Ida, do you want to read the questions out, or do you just want me to handle those?
Look, I'm happy to read them out if that's easier.
Great, sure, that would be great.
Okay, we've had some great questions come through. So the first one is, I've been told that posts on LinkedIn require a click-through to another site or article to improve engagement. Do you feel that posting an image with a small amount of text without a click-through every now and then is acceptable or works to improve engagement?
It will, although what we're seeing, the LinkedIn trainers that I work with and that I network with, is that it doesn't appear the algorithm is punishing you putting links in text now. That being said, if you can add an image to posts, they seem to do better with engagement. People like to look at pictures. And another thing you'll notice, if you're reading through and scrolling through, if you're doing a link to a blog, it will actually tell you how many minutes it takes to read that. So that's been helping. And I think that that's related to why they're not punishing now putting links in text. So hopefully that answered the question.
Thanks for that. I have a personal profile with 500 plus connections and a business profile with a small number of followers. Almost of my content is business related. Do you recommend posting on the business profile and sharing on the personal profile to get more followers for the business?
I don't. You're always going to get more engagement from your personal profile. LinkedIn is a personal business page. Your personal profile, it's a business page, and that's how you have to think about it. You are, especially in this industry, you are your brand. I tell people, yes, you should have a company page. First of all, so that your branding shows up next to your name, next to your company name on your profile. Also, you need a company page. It gives you some credibility, but you also need a company page if you're ever going to do hiring through LinkedIn or do or do advertising through LinkedIn, but most people don't have enough time to post both places, and it's hard to gain new followers for a company page, much easier to get connections for a personal page. So I would go ahead and post on your personal page. That's what I do most of the time.
Okay, thank you for that. And lastly, how do you invite connections to follow the business profile?
Okay, so I'm going to jump off of the let me and go here. So actually, there's a brand new feature on LinkedIn for company pages. So you can see your company page here. So I administer some for my church, but this is our business page for Social Sales Link. And I just have to move the camera here out of the way. If you go over to admin tools, or did they move it? They moved it. Okay, so right down here, you can see invite connections to follow right here. So you can do that right from this area. And I do apologize, and right from followers here, maybe they've moved some things around because they've just added it so that you can see your followers. All right, so that's there. And okay, so right from the admin tools, invite connections, and now it'll bring your connections up. Here's the problem. It doesn't really let you, you can search for them here, but you can't. So I'm selecting Ida, and I'll select Robert. Have to have your fingers on the right keys when you do that, and I can send it. And you'll notice you have 100 credits per month, but as soon as someone accepts your invitation, you get that credit back. So that would be how you would gain followers. It can be long, it can be tedious. Like, so I have 3,800 followers and about that many connections. It'd take me a long time to go through those. What I would recommend is, as you're connecting with people, go right to your company page, go to this part, and then send them that connection, asking them to connect with your company page.
We've had another question come through. Do all staff members need to be admin?
Well, what you have to realize, if you're giving staff admin privileges, then they can post content, they can change the page. So it's okay if they have that, especially if you want multiple people to be posting and posting content. But if you're going to fire someone or you have problems with an employee, take their admin privileges away before you fire them, because we've seen some employees tank their pages and really do some damage before doing that. So just keep in mind who you want to have admin privileges to the page.
That seems to be all the questions that have come through. So thank you to the participants that submitted their questions. Thank you, Bill. This was a fantastic presentation. So thank you for the time. And I know, oh, hang on, sorry. Oh, yep, no, it's okay. Sorry, I just thought another question came through. We've just got a thank you there for you, Bill. It was an amazing presentation. And I couldn't agree more with you, Diane. You know, as mentioned before, we did have a similar LinkedIn webinar a couple of months ago. And I did mention to Bill, obviously, although it was great, I was looking forward for this one here because I can see the value in using LinkedIn. It's a phenomenal product and tool. So I would highly recommend for all business owners to get on board with this.
Wonderful. Well, hey, thank you so much for having me. And listen, folks, if you didn't get a chance to answer a question, my email I gave out, click the link on the resources or just connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to jump on a Zoom call and even late at night or early in the morning or however that all works, and give folks some ideas about their profile and help out further. So thank you so much. And somebody email me and tell me how Wednesday was, because I'm going to wake up in a few hours and it's going to be Wednesday. I just want to know what kind of day it's going to be.
Thank you, Bill. Tomorrow, everyone will receive a copy of today's recording along with the PowerPoint presentation. So on behalf of Bill McCormick and APPA, thank you for joining us today, and I hope you all have a great afternoon, and I hope you have a great evening, Bill.
All right, thank you all. Bye-bye.